What is up? Happy Thursday. Welcome on into Let's Bet It. Lauren Javari here with Mark Zinno. MZ, how are you today? Happy Thursday.
I am well. I am finishing up my training here at Fort Stewart, Georgia. So, but I am excited because we have a big show ahead of us, and I have to get back on the train. My winning streak on my plays of the days was snapped, but now I'm ready to get back to a new winning streak.
Hey, we're getting back to a new winning streak. You know what? My ice picks yesterday were ice cold after winning like 7 of the last 8. I lost both my bets yesterday, but want to know what that means? There's only one way to go, and that's up. And that's where we're going today, baby. My ice picks not going to be ice cold anymore. They're going to be red hot heading into tonight. So we got a lot to break down today. Without further ado, let's get into it. Oh, also, really quick, before we get into it, I was at the Braves game last night. They played the Red Sox. It was the first walk-off for the Braves this year. It was extremely exciting. My first Braves game of the year, and they ended up winning with a walk-off. Walked out of there 5-3.
They needed it too because, look, I mean, the Braves aren't supposed to lose to the Red Sox at this point. You know, they took 2 or 3 from the Brewers, and it looked like they were going to start to turn things around and be the World Series team from last year. And then their best starter to date this year, Kyle Wright, gets rocked in the first game of this short 2-game series. So it started to feel like as that game unfolded, like it was a really pressure-filled situation for the Braves. Had they got swept by the Red Sox, it would have been gloom and doom for Braves fans in this town. So to say the least, it was a much-needed win and in dramatic fashion.
Yeah, it was really exciting. I loved being there. I'm going back to the game on Friday against the Padres as a fan. So I'm like the biggest Braves fan this week. I couldn't be a bigger Braves fan if I tried, just saying. Okay, yeah, so without further ado, let's get into it. Let's bet it. Bet her up. YRFIs and NRFIs. No runs first inning. Yes runs first inning. Yesterday, NRFIs went 8-7, and they're now 228 and 222 on the regular season. Now, if you bet all NRFIs, you're down 36.72 units on the season, which is kind of a lot last time I checked. Now, if you look at the YRFIs, they're 222 and 228 so far in the season. If you bet all YRFIs, you're still down 36.68 units. So it's like literally identical to YRFIs and NRFIs. No matter if you bet all YRFIs, all your NRFIs, you're still down about 36.5 units, which you don't love to see. So that's why, Zinno, we do research on these NRFIs and YRFIs because we're trying to find the ones at good value. A lot of them are extremely juiced now that the books especially know that this is the newest trendy bet. Everyone's trying to get in on it and get after it. So you did all the research for us today because you have one NRFI and one YRFI. Please tell us more.
All right. Well, the NRFI is the Yankees and the White Sox. Despite the fact that the Yankees are one of the highest scoring teams in Major League Baseball, they just do not score runs in the first inning. Going up against Dylan Cease, who's one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball, going to be a Cy Young candidate. Really off to a great start this year. His last 3 starts have been almost, spotless. Only giving up 3 runs in his last 18 innings of pitching with 28 strikeouts. So feel confident on that one. And again, you're getting it at a good price at -110. It's certainly not steep by any stretch of the imagination. Now, the YRFI, Lauren, I'm still waiting on, but I have my eyes on it. And as long as I am not past my threshold of what I say is like -120, -125, I'm going to back the Cardinals and Orioles to get me a YRFI today. Most because Cardinals are best in Major League Baseball this year as far as scoring percentage is concerned. The Orioles pitching staff is bad, and the Cardinals have been shut out in their last 3 games in the first inning. So they're going to get back to form here. The only problem is the Orioles haven't announced their starter yet, so the lines haven't dropped yet. So everybody continue to look out for when the Orioles announce their starter and they post the lines for the game. Stick to the threshold, folks. If it's more than minus 120, minus 125, depending on what you're willing to pay, just walk away. I don't think it will be, but the Cardinals are very heavily juiced to yes to runs in first inning because of their track record this season. So as long as I don't have to pay a bad price, if I'm under 120, I'm going to back the Cardinals here today to score a run in the first inning.
Back in the Cardinals for YRFI. I love that. I actually might tell you on that one. Why not? So those are our YRFIs and NRFIs for today. I'm not on any MLB bets today. I am on both NBA games and a lot of hockey bets. We have Pete Jensen coming on in a little bit to break down the NHL. We got 4 games on the slate tonight. A couple series can be ending tonight, which is going to be really, really interesting to see how things kind of fall into place. But before we get into NHL, let's take it to the court for a second. Talk a little NBA action because we got 2 big games tonight. The one that a lot of people are talking about, obviously, is the 76ers taking on the Heat, right? I mean, we saw last game, Joel Embiid looked like he was in a little bit of pain. We saw James Harden not be able to put up the performance that we saw back in game 4 in Philly. The Heat came out hot. They had a stifling defense. The Sixers had struggled getting things going offensively. How do you see this game playing out back in Philly for game 6? Can the Sixers tie up the series and push it to 7 in Miami, or do you think the Heat finish this thing out tonight?
Well, shameless plug to check out my write-up on the Pickswise website on this game for both the side and the Philly. But, I mean, and I'll give you the synopsis of it. Like, do you believe that Joel Embiid was affected by the MVP voting in Game 5? That was a lot of the talk from some analysts,
So.
Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal. And I respect everything those guys say. They clearly know more than I do. But that's, was it that, or was it that he had a broken face and a torn ligament in his thumb and he's trying to grit out some games and he might not have just felt good about it? I mean, whichever side you want to go with, the bottom line here is that he has to have a big game in Game 6 to save his team's season. If he doesn't have a big game, the sort of validation is going to be there that he shouldn't be the MVP, or at least that will be the narrative, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's what people are going to say. You see, he's not an MVP. He couldn't get him when his team needed it. That said, this game boils down to a couple of simple things for Philadelphia. One, defend the perimeter. If they can limit Miami, now the 2 wins that they've gotten, they've limited Miami to 21% from deep. They are just 14 of 65 from deep in the 2 games they played at the Wells Fargo Center. So they have to stop the perimeter defense. And then conversely, they have to get back to shooting well and shooting from 3 well, because in the 2 games they won, they average better than 50% from the field and 47% from 3. It's really simple. Embiid has to have a big game. He's going to need some help from Harden. If they do that, Lauren, 2 things will happen. 1, Philadelphia will win and cover this 2-point spread. And 2, this should go over a very small total. All but 1 game in this series have both teams scored 100 points. So, like, somebody's been held to at least under 100 in 5 of the 4 of the 5 games so far. And so I don't think that trend necessarily continues. I think for both teams, the over, if Miami's going to win this game, they're going to need to score a lot, and as will Philadelphia. So I would more likely see that 116-108 final in this game that we saw in Game 4. If you get a big game from Embiid and Harden, than you would the 99-79 game we saw in Game 3.
Yeah, that is really interesting. So I'm actually taking the Heat money line here at plus 116, getting it at plus money. Joel Embiid just looked like he was lacking energy last game, and I don't think that has to do with the MVP voting. I think that has to do with him having a broken face and then getting hit in the face again, even with his mask on. That shit's gotta hurt. I mean, I've never broken my face before. I don't know what that feels like, Zeno. Have you broken your face?
No, this is my moneymaker. I try to protect it, obviously. It's the only reason
I know, face for TV, baby, not for radio.
Exactly.
No, but I mean, that has to hurt. Like, you have to have a constant headache, right? There's a lot of swelling there. I know they're giving him some medications and stuff to help him feel better, but at the same time, you're playing with a broken face. And I don't, like, when you work out, I feel like the blood's flowing, you know what I mean? Like, you're sweating. It's just a lot going on up here. That's tough to be able to bring the energy and literally put your entire team on your back and carry your team. James Harden, where are you in Game 5? Yeah, you played great in Game 4, but if that's not a trend that we're seeing, where are you? I saw Jimmy Butler, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent. They all had double digits. Team shot 39% after shooting, like you said, 21% through games 3 and 4 from beyond the arc. I mean, the Heat brought the intensity down low too. They out rebounded the Sixers by 10. They outscored them by 20 points in the paint in game 5. I know Philly's facing elimination. There was a lack of effort. There was no physicality. No one really looked like they wanted to win or even wanted to be there. And I feel like that tells the narrative right now of games 1, 2, and game 5. Yeah, they used the home crowd in games 3 and 4, but Joel Embiid, who's usually like the energy driver for that team, wasn't there with his energy. Harden only got to the line 3 times. He lacked aggression. They need more from him. They only shot 28% from deep. They shot 50% from 3 when they were home. I think that that's because, yes, like Joel Embiid, his injury, it's hurting him when it comes to the energy that he's bringing to the court. James Harden needs to pick it up, but it's Eric Spoelstra. What he does, the adjustments he makes with his team, especially on the defensive end. The Heat made some defensive adjustments that worked really well on Tuesday, and they found their shooting. And no Kyle Lowry, no problem. Miami is 5-0 without him during the playoffs. I think that they go into the Sixers. They have that on their mind. They want to finish out the series. Their depth is going to shine. And I like the Heat money line here, but we'll see how that works because it's a tale of two teams. Which Sixers team is going to show up? I don't know. So I think we'll be able to see in the first quarter what we're going to, like the kind of vibe of the Sixers team that we're going to get from that game. So we'll see how that works out. The other game, the Suns taking on the Mavs here, game 6. Going back to Dallas, what Mavs team are we going to see? What Suns defense are we going to see here, Zeno? How do you think this game plays out?
I probably think the Suns win. I think they close it out. I think just their experience and their veteran savvy and Chris Paul in these spots doesn't want to force this thing to a game 7. So they'll be extra motivated to kind of win this game. But that said, the over favors the Suns. The more they score against a tough Dallas defense, the more likely they are to win. So I'm still getting very low totals for a team that is offensively minded as the Suns are. I know Dallas's defense is good, and they've done their job. I mean, give them all the credit in the world. They've absolutely done their job, especially at home here. But I'm gonna back the over in this game on the off chance that I guess it's sort of like a mini hedge that even if Dallas puts together a good offensive game, it's going to push the total over as well. But I think Phoenix probably comes out on top.
Yeah, it is going to be really interesting to see how this game plays out. I think Phoenix comes out on top too. I'm actually looking at the under in this game. I know we have different bets today in the NBA, and you've been so red hot. You're up 40 units on the season in your NBA bets. So kudos to you. Really proud of you. But when I look at this game, I lean towards the under, and I haven't necessarily bet it yet. But when I'm looking at it, like, yeah, the Suns are done messing around at this point. They blew the top off in the third quarter in game 5. They outscored the Mavs 33-14. They forced 12 turnovers in the third quarter. That's wild. Luka had 28 points, but the rest of the team struggled with offensive efficiency. And Phoenix, solid on defense. Betting unders also, Zeno, in Dallas home games have been extremely profitable this season. The trend, I think, is going to continue. 33 of the Mavs' 46 home games haven't hit the total. And games 3 and 4 fell short of that number too. No team has played slower this season than Dallas. They're averaging 5 fewer possessions at home during the postseason than they did in the regular season. So they're playing even slower. Yeah, pace is a big reason, but it's also the Mavs' inefficiency at this point on offense. The Suns are exceptional on defense right now during this series. And the Mavs have had the 3rd worst offensive rating of the 8 teams left in the playoffs. They're averaging 104 points per game. They haven't scored more than 99 points in 4 of 11 postseason games. And the Suns ranked 3rd in defensive rating during the regular season. They proved in game 5 how stingy they can be on that end of the court when they're motivated. And I think they're motivated to close out the series tonight. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Mavs can get their offense going. But the Suns, I think their defense is going to show up. And like you said, I think that they're the pick to win this game tonight. They're going to close out the series in Dallas. Sorry, Luka. Love watching you play, but the road ends here, buddy. The road ends here. We'll see how it works. Speaking of the road, let's snake down the road and head from the court to the ice as we bring in our good friend Pete Jensen to talk a little NHL postseason from the NHL Fantasy on Ice podcast. Let's bring him in, Pete Jensen.
this year. And the one thing that has stood out to me, at least, and for a guy who loves betting first period overs and unders, there have just been way too many damn goals scored in these NHL playoffs. The overs are coming in like crazy. Nobody's playing any defense. The best goaltender in the league is getting scored on and beat like a rented mule, Pete. So why is there all of a sudden this influx of goal scoring here in the postseason when usually the premium is on goaltending?
Yeah, and it's really interesting because 32 of the 39 playoff games so far have seen the winning team win by 2+ goals, which obviously has a lot of implications for the things you were talking about. That's 82% clip that we're seeing. Not some of the games have been blowouts. Some of the games have been like flip-flopping, some blown leads, and then the team ends up winning by 2+ goals. So that's been really interesting, something I'm looking at. And yeah, in terms of the goal scoring, other than that Dallas-Calgary series, which is by far the lowest scoring, I mean, pretty much every series has seen eruption of goals at one time or another. So, and pretty consistently at that. So, yeah, it's really interesting. Scoring was up in the regular season at large, so it's not that surprising. But usually in the playoffs, you see, right, everybody buckle down, tight checking, high pressure type situations. But it's been a different story this year compared to previous years. So it's kind of fun to see too. And I'm looking forward to, as we get into the game sixes and hopefully a bunch of game sevens and hopefully some more overtime games. I mean, you're going to see a lot of tension out there on both sides because one team's going to be trying to close it out because they don't want to have to get to 7. And the other side's going to be like super urgent to try to overcome their miscues from game 5. So I'm really looking forward to the next couple of days.
Yeah, totally. I was ice cold, Pete, on my picks yesterday, and I'm mad at myself because I've been backing the Rangers every single game. And the one game, like they broke my heart one time in game 4, and then I all of a sudden flipped to the Pens, and I'm like, oh, the Pens are going to close out the series tonight. Why did I not just back my Rangers? What were they able to do yesterday after they were down 2-0 to be able to come back and push this series to a game 6?
Well, unfortunately for Pittsburgh, like that whole situation with the Rangers coming back in a fury late in the second period, it correlated with Sidney Crosby's injury, which on top of the injuries that they already have in net with Tristan Jarry, who's nearing a return but might not be ready for the rest of the series, Casey DeSmith out for the season with an injury. We all know that Pittsburgh's on its third string goalie. It's honestly shocking that they've taken a series lead in the fashion they've had with Louis Domingue going up against Igor Shesterkin and outperforming him to this point in the series. But yeah, I think that Crosby injury made a huge difference. You saw the Rangers immediately rattle off like 3 goals in a couple of minute span to take the lead. Some of their young players really stepped up and took command. I love to see that. But then if Crosby doesn't play in game 6 and or 7, that's a huge deal, especially with the series shifting back to Pittsburgh, where Pittsburgh will have, last change and they could get the matchups they want. But if they don't have Crosby, that's a big boost for the Rangers' top 2 centers in Zibanejad and Ryan Strome. So obviously a lot of what happens from here will hinge on Crosby's status for game 6.
Pete, let's shift to Toronto and Tampa Bay. I am the lone soul who backed Toronto this year. I'm the lone soul who picked them to win the Eastern Conference. I am the lone soul who believed that they could get out of the first round of the NHL playoffs finally. They're on the verge of doing it tonight. I'm going to back them because if this goes to game 7, it's just an awful set of doom and gloom for Maple Leafs fans. I don't know if anybody will even show up to the arena because they're just going to assume they're going to lose. But that said, it's been a high-scoring series. Which I think favors Toronto. Look, they tried to upgrade their goaltending at the trade deadline. They're stuck with Jack Campbell, who's not terrible. He's just not great. And so they've had to score a bunch of goals, but so has Tampa Bay. So I think Toronto comes out on top tonight, but I'm hoping for the best.
Yeah, Toronto, I mean, last year we saw Campbell was one of their best players in the playoffs, and this year he's been great in their wins. Like, I thought he was stellar, outmatching Vasilevsky in game 5. And the home ice advantage, I think, is real for the Maple Leafs. Now, game 7 might be a different story with all the pressure and everything mounting for them, and there would be a ton of drama. I kind of hope that there would be a game 7 regardless of who wins it, because it would just be so crazy. We wouldn't see any type of drama like that in any other series between the back-to-back defending champs and the Maple Leafs, who haven't won a playoff series since 2004. That's well documented by now. But yeah, with Tampa Bay, you're going to have to beat them at least to close it out here. You're going to have to beat them consecutive times, which is something no team has done dating back to the start of the 2020 playoffs. Vasilevsky always comes with his A game in these elimination games and these bounce back opportunities for him. And you know that you're going to see all the big five for Tampa Bay really have their games on the line, their season on the line. It's going to be really fun to watch. So I picked Tampa Bay to win the series on NHL.com at the beginning of the series. I still have some confidence in this group to bounce back, but a game 7 would be really dicey, would be really fun to watch, really unpredictable. But I am still leaning Tampa Bay because it's just so hard to close out that team based on the past 2 seasons.
I know Leafs fans are going to be absolutely devastated if they don't win this series because they haven't gotten past the first round since what, Pete? 2004. It's pretty crazy to think. Another series that's really caught my attention has been this Bruins-Canes series. I know they say that a series doesn't necessarily start until the road team wins. Well, the road team is yet to win in this series. Can the Canes break that trend tonight in Boston, or do you think the Boston pushes this to game 7?
Boston's stats in this series, from their power play to their penalty kill to everything in between, are like night and day, in a good way at home, in a bad way on the road. One good thing for Boston as they go back home, they're going to have last change. They have Charlie McAvoy. He came back in game 5 after COVID protocol and missing 1 game. Hampus Lindholm could potentially return. So then you're talking, because Boston would have their top pair back intact. So they really need that, especially with the matchup advantage. And then, Jeremy Swayman has been great in those home games. It was his first road start, the last one. There were a couple of close calls where maybe something could have gone one way or another. And of course, a very unlucky bounce on that 3rd goal by Carolina. If you saw it, it went off the skater's skate, the defenseman's skate, and then flipped over Swayman's head. I mean, total fluky thing there. But Carolina has earned it with their stellar home play. And Antti Ranta really stepping up to the plate and delivering, because Freddie Anderson's injury, I thought that was really going to doom Carolina in this series. But their goaltending hasn't really missed a beat between Ranta and the rookie Kochetkov. So they've been good enough, and Carolina has had much better depth scoring than Boston. So I wouldn't be surprised if Boston held serve here, but they're going to have to get more out of their secondary guys. You've seen all this production from guys like Trocheck and Seth Jarvis and Jacob Slavin and Tony DeAngelo in terms of secondary scoring. So Carolina has a clear edge right now, and it's going to be really tough for Boston to beat them in game 7 on the road, if it even gets to that point.
Yeah.
Pete, level of upset if St. Louis ends up beating Minnesota. So often we get stuck with, high offensive teams and high scoring teams, and they look so unbeatable during the regular season. Look, these two teams are fairly comparable records / points wise throughout the regular season. But Minnesota's offense is one of the best in the league. And so for St. Louis to pull this off, do you consider it like a big time upset?
I mean, it's a nice story for St. Louis, especially if Jordan Binnington overcomes his regular season troubles and struggles and returns to playoff form like he was in game 5. So, that's really been a good storyline, especially for a guy that led them on a cup run before, makes them very dangerous if he's bouncing back in the playoffs. But yeah, I don't see it as like a huge upset just because they were evenly matched. And even if you looked at it, like, I picked Minnesota on NHL.com. I thought they had better goaltending. They have home ice in the series, which maybe could pay off in game 7. But the Blues are one of the deepest offenses in the whole league all year, like in our fantasy power rankings, which, gauges how many players that they have that are fantasy relevant in our rankings on top 200. Like, it was always all season. It was Florida number 1, it was Colorado number 2, and then in terms of number of players in our rankings, it was St. Louis number 3. So it's really not that surprising or shocking, but it's been surprising to see Minnesota drop 2 home games to this point. And the fan base in Minnesota seems to be a little negative right now. It's not like the best. They've had great atmospheres at home. It's just like the crowd kind of, the balloon pops a little bit when they fall behind at their home rink right now.
You look at the Oilers Kings series, and one of the biggest storylines right now is that Nurse is going to be suspended, right? He's suspended for game 6, their best D-men basically for the Oilers. How big of an impact is that to the game? And can the Kings look to capitalize on that and finish out the series?
It's huge because you're already looking at what the Kings are working with and what they're working without in terms of, not having Drew Doughty, their top defenseman for the whole series. Victor Arvidsson, one of their top secondary guys, has not played a game yet. So it's really shocking. I mean, that's pretty surprising that Edmonton has gotten a series lead, won twice in Edmonton, right, between game 1 and game 5. And their possession style kind of caters to this type of an upset. So, I think Nurse being out cancels out Doughty being out for game 6 and really gives the Kings a chance to close this thing out here. McDavid and Draisaitl are not going to go quietly. They've been great in this series, but they need more, Edmonton does, from their secondary guys, and they need more from Mike Smith, who has gotten outworked here by Jonathan Quick, the 2-time champion on the other side. I'm not liking what I've seen from the Edmonton Oilers, and minus Darnell Nurse. The only glimmer I could see is like maybe Evan Bouchard, who I think has untapped potential on defense. Maybe he could be elevated in the lineup and really show his potential and show what he could do in terms of carrying the team, playing like 30 or 35 minutes, whatever they need him to play to keep their season alive in game 6.
It is going to be really, really interesting to see how everything plays out. Pete, we so appreciate you coming on the show, giving us your best knowledge about some of this postseason stuff. I'm sure we're going to be talking to you throughout the postseason. Some big games going on tonight. Enjoy them all. And looking forward to listening to your podcast too. I love listening to it. It's great.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Yeah, we're dropping a new episode today. We're going to look ahead, like we just did, to the game 6s and hopefully game 7s, because there are, potential, I think, for 3 or 4 on Saturday and then another 3 or 4 on Sunday. So if they all happen, we could have an unbelievable weekend of hockey in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens, but already a lot of drama coming up in these game 6s.
I love the drama. Love the drama. More drama. Make sure you guys listen to NHL Fantasy and Ice podcast with Pete Jensen. It's amazing. It breaks down everything that you need to know about the NHL postseason. Pete, have a great weekend. Best of luck with watching the games. Have so much fun.
You too, guys.
Hearing from him, he's the absolute best. Let's get into some of our bets for the postseason with hockey. Obviously, Zeno, I've been doing my What the Puck segment on TikTok and Twitter. We're loving to see it, but they were ice cold yesterday. Hopefully they're going to be red hot today. I'm going to start with you. Who do you like heading into tonight's slate of games?
All right, I'm just going to buy into the over at this point in time, and I'm staying with the series that I've had my eyes on the closest with, and that's Toronto and Tampa Bay. I'm going to go over 6.5 goals here in this game. One way or another, they're going to get there because I feel like Toronto's going to have to score 3 or 4 on their own to win this thing. And if Tampa Bay wins, the way Pete just talked about Jack Campbell being bad on the road this year in this series, he's probably going to give up 3 or 4 on his own, and you have a case where Toronto's chasing. But I think they easily get to 7. It's not a bad price at minus 115. So I'm going to back the over as my best NHL play today in this game. And I'm going to first period over in this game. Screw it. At this point, like, I just don't care how much juice I'm paying. There's no reason for me not to buy into the over. If I mush it, great. I mush it. But first period over, Toronto, Tampa Bay, minus 158. Oh, I cringe saying it out loud. It's an awful number to pay of juice. But I'm just going to buy into it and throw it up to the gambling gods and hope I come out on the right side.
Toss it up to the gambling gods. You love it. I'm actually on the over for this game too. I haven't bet the over yet. I have bet 2 official overs and then 1 side. My side bets didn't necessarily work. And I bet 3 overs the day before and went 2-0-1. Why the hell am I not continuing to bet overs? Why did I not bet overs yesterday? All of it, like basically 2 to 3. I'm like, Okay, so I'm just going back to the well with what's been working for me so far this season. Hurricanes taking on the Bruins. I like the over 6 in this spot. And I also am leaning at this point the Carolina money line. I haven't bet it yet. I'm probably going to, just because I think the Canes are the first road team that wins here. The Canes are 3-0 at home this season. At this series, they've outscored the Bruins 15-4. The Bruins are 2-0 at home this season or this series, and they've outscored the Canes by 9-4. Boston is licking their wounds heading into this game. They need more from the bottom 9 to survive. And at this point, they're uncertain of who's going to start between the pipes. Linus Ullmark, he lost the first 2 games at Carolina. Jeremy Swayman, who had 2 wins in 3 and 4, but got absolutely crushed in game 5. Who do you start in this game? Do you start the vet? Do you start the rookie? I don't know the answer to that, and I think that that's what Boston's struggling with at this point, too. I love the over, though. All 5 games so far have hit the over. Well, it's been 4-0-1, so 4 hits, 1 push. And empty net goals have been a huge thing so far this postseason. They're putting all of the totals over. I'm riding that until the trend starts to change. So I'm leaning Canes money line. Haven't bet it yet, but I am definitely betting the over in this game. The over has gone 4-0-1 in the last 5 games in this series. Take it to the Wild Blues. Over 6.5. Both teams have had high scoring games this year. 6 of their 8 matchups for the regular or for the season have gone over 6.5 total goals. The Wild are in a must-win situation. Kirill Kaprizov needs to lead the offense here, which he's been doing. The team scored 4 total goals in games 4 and 5 combined, I think it was. But they've generated a ton of high danger scoring chances. 5.38 expected goals for in games 4 and 5, but they just haven't necessarily been finding the back of the net. They need a little bit more from their bottom 6, bottom 9. Fleury's going to be in net for the Wild. He hasn't had 2 good performances. He allowed 8 goals on 64 shots in 2 games. St. Louis wants to close out this series at home. They've scored 10 goals total over the last 2 games. They're ranked 3rd in the league in goals per game. The Blues are banged up on the blue line. Marco Scandella, Torrey Krug is also day-to-day. But I'm really surprised with how well St. Louis has shut down Minnesota. The Blues ranked 25th in the league in 5-on-5 expected goals for per 60 minutes. St. Louis, they've also scored 4 or more goals in 6 of the 8 games against Minnesota this season. Minnesota scored 4 or more goals in 4 of 8 games this season. The trends back the over and on both extremely talented offenses, and it's hard for me to see this game not getting to 7 because I know that the Blues have been putting up the numbers. Minnesota can't be struggling for as long as they have been offensively. They're going to get things going and they're going to figure it out, and they're going to do it behind a guy like Kirill Kaprizov, who one of the most phenomenal skaters I've seen. Him and Cale Makar. It's so much fun to watch them both skate. The last bet that I'm officially on is the Kings money line at plus 118. They took a 3-2 series lead, and as we heard Pete say it, without one of their best guys. So you look at that, and then Darnell Nurse is now going to be suspended for the Oilers after headbutting in Game 5. He's suspended now for Game 6. These teams have really been fairly matched up now through 5 games, though. But the Oilers generated slightly more high-danger scoring chances than the Kings. Also, the Oilers' power play is clicking. They're converting right now on 41% of their opportunities with the man advantage. Connor McDavid is leading the series in scoring with 9. Adrian Kempe is 5 points for LA. But the big story here is Darnell Nurse being suspended. He leads the Oilers at this point in average ice time. He had 1 goal and 1 assist with a +5 rating. That's a huge blow for the Oilers. Huge, huge, huge blow. Kings are 4-1 in their last 4 home games, 8-3 in their last 11 games overall. And the Oilers, I know they're 15-6 in their last 21 games, but they're only 2-9, Zeno, in their last 11 playoff games as a favorite. Guess who's favorited here? Guess who isn't favorited in the trends? The Oilers, okay? It's hard for me to see Edmonton extending the series here without their best defenseman in the lineup. Connor McDavid has put this team on his back, but he can't win the series by himself. The Kings need to step up their power play. They're only converting 10% on the man advantage, but the Kings money line is a really good value here, and I think they're being undervalued by odds makers, honestly, at this point. So lock it in, baby. Kings money line plus 118. You'll love to see it. Okay, let's get into our best bets of the day because I just basically said my best bet. It's the Kings money line, but I'll get back into it again. Before we get into our best bets of the day, let's go to Pickswise.com to know who is our 3-star play of the day on the website.
Right,
You
so
can plug your own if you have one.
There are some horse racing picks. There's some tennis. There's some golf. But if you're looking for more mainstream sport, Brian Prouty has the White Sox minus 145 on the money line is his best bet tonight against the New York Yankees. Stepping in front of the Yankees train is Brian Prouty, and the White Sox a considerable favorite, all things considered, against the best team in baseball.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really fun to watch some of those games. We want to win you money.
Yeah.
Go to Pickswise.com. Make sure to check out the reasonings why. I don't know why I was just like so staccato with everything that I was saying. Okay, let's get into your best bet because you've been on fire. Zeno is on fire.
Wow.
Do you like that?
I didn't know we were breaking out into song here. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. I feel
Yeah.
so much more energized about my pick right now. I'm actually going to stay in that.
Zeno is on fire. Okay, I'm done now.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You're making me all verklempt. I might need a moment. Yankees, White Sox, under 8 runs in the game. The White Sox score the 3rd fewest runs in Major League Baseball at 3.5 runs per game. As a home favorite this year, they're just 4-8-1 to the over, and they are a considerable favorite here. They're going to start Dylan Cease, the Cy Young candidate, rounding into form. Over his last 3 starts, he's given up just 3 runs in 18 innings with 28 strikeouts, should neutralize that Yankees offense. Oh, by the way, the New York Yankees, 4-8 on the road this year to the over. They're averaging almost 3/4 of a run less on the road than they are at home. They'll start Lucas Gill tonight, a young right-hander, high strikeout pitcher, but I don't expect a lot of runs to be scored. And the fact that the White Sox are such a heavy favorite in this game sort of backs the idea that the Yankees won't put up their normal run scored average in this game. Give me the under 8 Yankees-White Sox as my play of the day.
Under 8, baby. Let's see it happen. My best bet of the day, I basically just talked about it. It's the Kings money line at plus 118. You can scroll back in the show and see my reasoning why. No, just kidding. I'll give a couple quick tips. Obviously, the Kings have been really, really solid at home. They want to close out the series here in Game 6. With Darnell Nurse being suspended, that is a huge, huge, huge blow for the Oilers here. He leads them in average ice time at 1 goal, 1 assist, plus 5 rating through 5 games so far. The Kings are 4-1 in their last 4 home games, 8-3 in their last 11 games overall. And the Oilers are only 2-9 in their last 11 playoff games as a favorite. Hard for me to see Edmonton again extending the series without their best defenseman in the lineup. Connor McDavid can't win the series by himself for that team. The Kings need to step up on the power play, only converting 10% at this point in the man advantage. But Kings money line, good value here at plus money. And they're able to get things done. So I like the Kings to finish out the series at home in front of a home crowd. No Darnell Nurse for the Edmonton Oilers. We'll see what happens here. Hopefully my ice picks aren't ice cold. Hopefully they're red hot today because I've been so good on the season and so great during postseason. And yesterday just got me down in the dumps a little bit, you know?
We'll be looking back up again. Things will come out on top once again for LJ.
My dad always says the cream always rises, baby. Hopefully the cream rises tonight. And that's how we're leaving the show today. That's it for us. Best of luck on your bets tonight. For Mark Zeno, I'm Lauren Javara. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. Check us out on Pickswise.com for some of the best 3-star play of the days. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Let's get it. Let's bet it.